Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Doobie Woods, the home base of Traveling with the Doobies, and we're here to wrap up our Galapagos expedition on Silversea's Silver Origin. Now, historically, we've been traveling on more standard types of itineraries and cruises, mainly on a seaborne in the Mediterranean and on their expedition ship, the Pursuit, but on a normal itinerary, not an expedition itinerary. We've also had a couple of experiences with family cruises on Holland America, as well as doing the obligatory Disney cruise ship with the family, and thank God that kid is in college. This was our first true expedition, and while it's tough to compare a traditional cruise to an expedition, I think we can give our impressions of the Silversea offering in the Galapagos, and hopefully you'll find this discussion helpful. Let's start off. What did Silversea and the crew of the Silver Origin do well? I think first and foremost, safety. First of all, we had an actual muster drill. So it wasn't just what's become popular now after COVID, which is sit in your cabin, watch a video, maybe you'll take your life jacket, usually not, and go meet in the theater or some sort of large meeting place on the ship and check in, and that's pretty much it. No, what the Silver Origin crew did was they mandated that all of us meet at the top level at the grill. We were broken up into groups of, I'd say, 20 or 25, and we met with a safety officer, and the safety officer went through the demonstrations, particularly on the life vest, and also kind of what to do in the case of emergency. Then he took the group, and each one of the safety officers took the groups over to where the lifeboat is and where the life rafts are, and explained in detail what would happen, where the rails would open, how we would get into the lifeboat, what the provisions were, where crew would go as well, and really explained in detail what we were to do. So that was kind of nice, giving that sense of comfort of what to do in an emergency so far away from the mainland. But they also did more. Food safety was paramount on the Silver Origin. So when we returned back from the muster drill, we found on our bed we found an invite to come down to the restaurant and meet with the chef and the maitre d', Ruben. And we did that at our appointed time, and it's also where we met some really dear friends of ours who were also just about to meet with the chef and maitre d' about their particular food allergies and all. And we spent about 10 minutes with the chef and with Ruben, and they asked detailed questions, asking what were the consequences if we consume the wrong types of foods or allergens, and what are the things we knew were a problem, and then they prescribed kind of how they're going to look out for us. We explained that earlier in the day, even on our first lunch, that Santiago, our waiter at the restaurant, was very, very detailed in his questioning around food issues, and Santiago is the best, he'll take care of you. But even when we couldn't then after that sit in Santiago station, Ruben always had the sharp eye out for us, and even on buffet, when we went to the buffet for lunch or breakfast, he would actually escort my wife to the different stations and point out which things were safe for her to eat and which ones she needed to stay away from. So we thought that was excellent, because in reality you are 1,000 kilometers away from the mainland, and you don't want any kind of issues popping up that would require an evacuation from a ship like that, if you certainly can help it. And it just gives you an overall sense of comfort that the crew is looking out for you. Finally, I think on safety, and what impressed us is even from the very first few moments that we met with our first guide, Karina, taking us to the Zodiacs, we were encouraged and required to learn the grip, interlocking grip, when you're getting in and out of the Zodiacs. The seas are bucking a lot of times, and it's always important to have a couple of points of contact when you're getting in and out of that Zodiac. Also, when we were in the water, and particularly not only in deep water snorkeling but also in shore snorkeling, there were always Zodiacs assigned to patrol the areas, make sure that nobody got in trouble, nobody swam into an area where the Zodiacs were operating, and nobody swam out to where maybe the currents were too strong or too rough. So I think A+ across the board for Silversea when it comes to their safety and looking out for the guests on the Silver Origin. Now, of course, the real reason we're there, the expeditions themselves. And I would say what really added to the quality of the expeditions on Silver Origin were the excellent and knowledgeable local guides. Now, it's a requirement that all crew members and guides in the Galapagos be from Ecuador, and that's for all Galapagos tours, whether it's Silversea or not. With that, I think you get a deep understanding and appreciation for the country and the area, and you get to know people who are passionate about their country, about the ecology, about the marine life around, the plant life that are in the Galapagos. And you get every once in a while you get interesting stories of, say, how they grew up, how when it used to be okay to eat all those really pretty red Sally Lightfoot crabs, which evidently are delicious, but that's not allowed anymore. So that was a lot of fun to learn something from folks that are actually grew up in the area and in the country. The nightly briefings were actually very, very important. They were not only important in deciding what optional activities that you're going to do the next day, if you were going to go deep water snorkeling, or if you were going to go kayaking when that was offered, or they even had paddle boards in one location. But it was also very important to pay attention, because the leader of the expedition leader, she went over what the actual experience was like, what the landscape was like, if there were challenges from a standpoint of mobility that you needed to take in mind. It was very, very important to pay attention, and I'll talk to why that was important a little bit later in our debrief here. But they were very, very valuable in understanding how you're going to lay out your next day's itinerary. And preceding the nightly briefings was always a lecture presented, usually by one of the expedition crew that would go over things like the geology of the place, how humans came to interact with the Galapagos, a little bit about Charles Darwin, of course. And so those were always very interesting, and a good excuse to have a pre-dinner cocktail and learn a little something. Okay, you can't talk about any cruise experience without talking about food. And I'd say, other than the very first lunch, where my fish had little to no seasoning, all other meals were very good to exceptional. All produce and fish comes from the Galapagos whenever possible. And the chef always had a typical Ecuadorian dish that was available at lunch and dinner. So you also had the opportunity to be able to sample some of the local fare. Some of them were his, say, mom's favorite recipes that he'd present out to the guests. And so that was a nice treat. A little bit about what you can expect from the service and the food. Donna noted on night 2 that she particularly loved the slipper lobster that was available that night. And so Ruben told the chef put aside a bag of slipper lobsters, and any time she wanted to have her slipper lobster and shrimp grill, she could have that. And it was our little secret. But I think that was probably one of those secrets that just about everybody in the crew that interacted with the chef and Maitre D they made sure that you had exactly the type of food that you really enjoyed. So what did we have? Well, the ceviches were always available as an appetizer. And apologies to my vegetarian friend, but one afternoon lunch, they had a suckling pig. I didn't order it. Ruben made sure to deliver me a plate because it was a meal he said I couldn't miss. And so it was just melt in your mouth, delicious. And I really appreciate, again, that little attention to detail to make sure that we tasted everything the chef had set out for us. Speaking of our vegetarian friends, though, the types of dishes and the quality of dishes and variety of dishes that were prepared for our friends was really amazing. And so they were gluten-free, they were vegan dishes. They include ceviches made from fresh vegetables, significant series of pasta dishes utilizing those. They even created some of the best celiac-friendly vegetarian pizzas that I had ever seen or sampled. So they always made sure that, again, everybody had an enjoyable experience when it came to the food. And for our friends, they were worried a little bit about traveling back on the plane to Quito on the morning that we departed. Ruben made sure to pack them a celiac-friendly vegan bag lunch, so that they'd have something to enjoy on their way back to Quito that evening. Now, cautionary tale, a bit of warning for beef lovers. If you like a medium rare steak, order the fish. All beef, and I think maybe all meat, has to be pre-cooked, as we were told, to kill any potential bacteria before being sent to the Galapagos. So medium light pink is the best that you can do. But we were kind of warned about overall beef products and even some of the pork products by our driver who brought us into the JW Marriott from Quito, who basically says, here, eat the fish. Our cows have to work way too hard going up and down all these mountains. Have to give a nod, though, to desserts. Let's just say the chef and his team take full advantage of access to some of the finest chocolate on the planet. And as well, from a service perspective, Don had mentioned one morning maybe getting a chocolate croissant with some of that fine chocolate to Reuben. And he told us that sometimes the chef makes these little chocolate rolls, and he would make sure that the chef knew that, that it's something that we would want the next morning. And sure enough, the next morning, even though we'd kind of laughed it off, those rolls were there, ready and waiting for us for morning breakfast. Now, the wines served with dinner were heavy on the South American varietals. Most were very good, some not so much. But anytime we didn't care for the nightly offering, if we had made a note of a wine that we particularly liked the second night, and I think it was a Spanish-based Grenache, and the crew would always find a bottle of that if we didn't care for the red of the night, or we didn't care for the white. They would find something else, which is another thing. I've seen this with Seabourn as well, with Silversea. Is if something doesn't meet your satisfaction, just mention it to your server or to the maitre d', and they will always make it right in almost every case that we've experienced. Now, a quick note on cocktails and spirits. They were good, but just keep in mind that on a ship like this, it's a 100-person max. So the selection of the top shelf brands was maybe, I'd say, 20% of what we'd seen on, say, Seabourn's 300-person ship or Silversea's 600-person ship. Again, that's okay, because with the early morning hikes and activities, late night drinking is not really an option if you're going to get up and make that 7:30 Zodiac run, at least not at our advanced age. So let's talk about ship experience. The Silver Origin is an absolutely beautiful new ship, but no doubt it's $2,000 to $3,000 of an upcharge from competitors, even sister ship like the Celebrity Flora and the National Geographic offerings. So the decision to make when we were considering operators was really around level of comfort and not being nickel and dimed with extras. Talking a little bit about the suites, we saw our suite number 510 in the last video. All suite, or the normal suites on the fifth floor all have regular balconies where you can actually step out and have some nice balcony space. On the sixth floor, that's been replaced with a virtual balcony, so the cabin is a little bit longer out towards the ocean. The window comes down to about halfway, and you have a larger sitting area. We just personally like being able to step out onto a balcony and be there with the open ocean. But if you're someone who likes to say have more in-suite dining and all, having that little bit of extra space I think creates a bit more of a warm environment for that. But it really comes down to personal preference. I will say, though, that the actual balcony rooms were a tick cheaper as well, so a little bit more value-conscious travelers may want to look at that as well. Now, this was our first experience with Silversea and their butler service. I always kind of, sure, it's a butler, does it really make a difference? I'll have to say it really does. Joe, our butler, was fantastic. He helped us. One of our bags was partially destroyed by the carrier that moved our bags from Guayaquil to San Cristobal. He went down to engineering, found some industrial strength tape so that we could get that thing home. He was always at our beck and call. If you press the butler button, it rings a phone in his pocket, and he immediately responds to it, because we had one issue with the ship was kind of listing to one side. We took a shower, all the water tended to flood out, and he took care of that. Was right there at the call, and it is a nice perk to have that level of personalized service, and it was a notch above what we had experienced with other high-end cruise lines. I'd say, too, there were also some small luxuries. Whenever we finished snorkeling and you step back onto the boat from the Zodiac and you're a little chilled, there's a warm robe that the crew members wrap around you. So yeah, that's pretty nice. There's a fresh hot pot of chocolate, the Ecuadorian chocolate, ready for to warm you up, as well as another herbal warm tea-like drink for you to sample, and it really doesn't suck to have that kind of level of just nice little attention when you step back on the ship. I think the thing I remember most about the cabin on the Silver Origin was how quiet it was, and probably the most quiet cabin we've ever experienced on any cruise line. Now, I don't want to discount that it could be that we were all in bed by 10 every night. Pretty much the entire ship was anyway. But I think it's not just that. I think the rooms really were built for quiet and comfort. And there's nothing like having a long day of hiking. You've done some significant swimming. Maybe you've had an extra glass of wine and you hit a nice soft bed, and it's just whisper quiet as you're moving from one location to the next in the Galapagos. So that was really, really nice. So it was just perfect. Well, on board we had very few complaints. But some information that could be useful for those considering a Galapagos excursion on the Silversea Silver Origin. Our biggest complaint was with communication from corporate Silversea. And I won't go into all of the details because frankly it's kind of dull and a little petty. However, there were some changes to flight itineraries that were beyond Silversea's control. We received message from our travel specialists that we were going to receive a call directly from Silversea to work through different options we had if our flights needed to change to get to and from the islands. And frankly, the phone call never happened. Well, I didn't press it either. But come to find out, once we got on board, talking with our new sets of friends, and some of them very experienced and loyal Silversea guests, is that they were experiencing the same kinds of problems. Some of them did finally receive direct communication from Silversea, but it was a week before departure. So they had already made their plans in order to get from islands back to Quito. Others, we found out, were very persistent, and they were given the option to actually then bypass the bunny hop to Guayaquil and go directly to San Cristobal and spend an extra night in the islands. So I think a couple of lessons here. One is be persistent, and you might get something that you weren't expecting that was really, really, really good, such as an extra day in the islands. And the other is really some advice to Silversea, which is your customers are saying that your customer service with corporate Silversea is suffered since the RCL takeover. You're going to need to address that. The expectation in this category of cruising is very, very high, and you should meet the expectations of these folks that are paying premium dollar for your product. Now, our only other criticism of the expedition can be shared by both the expedition team, I think, and your other passengers on board. On the day that we were to visit the Wave Albatross, there were two activities available that afternoon. One was, and we were warned about, a 2-mile walk over various undulating boulders and lava. The other would be a quote-unquote less strenuous walk along the shore that would have a few steps and boulders, but would be much easier. Well, Donna chose that option, account that sometimes she struggles with her knees, as did many folks on the cruise. But when her group reached the end of the beach, they were stopped. They couldn't go any further because one of the guests who had not paid attention couldn't go any further. So an hour-long nature hike became a 20-minute wander around a very small beach, about the size of the Doobie Forest area here. So a dozen guests were now forced to return to the ship. And for the price and the unique opportunity of this place, it may not be too much to ask to have an escort naturalist or other guide that can actually take a guest back. Because the very real issue that Silversea has to deal with is that you cannot leave a guest. They have to be accompanied by a certified naturalist, a licensed naturalist. So there isn't just this option of, hey, you wait here and we'll get you on the way back. And I guess my caution to other guests is be really honest about what your physical abilities are because in a lot of these cases this is a once-in-a-lifetime trip, and you could be you could have an impact on somebody else seeing maybe the animal that they've traveled halfway around the world to see or have an experience that they were really counting on as far as vacation. So I think that's a cooperation, and maybe one of those things that that Silversea could work on is having a spare person there that could take you back to the Zodiac, or at least stay with a guest who can't make it further than they had thought. Other guests on board. I'd say there are really two types of guests you'll encounter on a ship like the Silver Origin. The first are people who really want a unique experience visiting one of the most developmentally isolated places on the planet. Nature lovers, bird watchers, snorkeling enthusiasts, who are all here to experience the islands and learn from the local guides. And also those for who the Silversea experience is a true splurge as they explore in comfort. Thankfully, there were only a few of the second category of passenger on the Silver Origin that we experienced. And these are people whose expectation, in fact demand, is for luxury and pampering care. And they've decided, hey, we've never cruised the Galapagos. Of course, let's do it on Silversea. And they've done very little to no research about the place, the itinerary, onshore amenities at all. So be clear. If you're expecting beach days where you're going to sit in a lounger underneath an umbrella with drinks brought to you, this is not the cruise for you. If you can't stand for 15-20 minutes listening to a lecture and learning about, say, the giant tortoises without getting fidgety and starting to wander off, and we had one lady who we nicknamed the Diva who was in that category, you might want to choose another itinerary. If you're expecting to have late nights of dancing and drinking and partying, find another cruise. Because let's face it, this is a very expensive cruise for 7 nights. And you can spend the same money and get double the amount of nights on a Silversea or a Seabourn at a place that does offer those things. So pay attention to the itinerary and pay attention to what the place offers. And when it comes to the overall place that is the Galapagos, while we were doing our research for this expedition, we ran across another cruise blogger who made the point that there are no big wow types of animals or landscapes, his opinion, in this place. And I heard this sentiment actually from another guest, which set me off just a little bit. But my counterpoint to both individuals and the point I made to my fellow traveler on the Silver Origin is that the Galapagos themselves in its entirety is the big wow, at least for me. It's the nesting birds that you're walking next to. It's these amazing schools of fish. It's the face-to-face encounters with these sea lions. It's seeing these giant tortoises out roaming in the grassland. And I hope our videos have given you a chance to see what that experience is really like in determining if this is a good itinerary and good expedition for you. And finally, I'd like to give a free plug to our cruise specialist. We have used Tom Baker as the president of Cruise Center for our travel needs for the last 11 years. I am not paid or compensated in any way by Tom, but I will say if you need a cruise and travel specialist, you will not find better anywhere. And you can find his here. So thanks, Tom, and many thanks for the future trips you're going to help us set up as well. So that concludes our Galapagos series. If you like what you saw, hit the like button, subscribe, send comments of what worked, what didn't work, as I'm getting used to the video editing and all. And we're going to have a lot of trips coming up, both big and little tips that I'll add to the site. And in the next 8 months, look out for our trips to Greece, Antarctica, and the Society Islands in Tahiti. So thanks again for traveling with the Doobies. This is Michael Doobie signing out.